Part 1. Before. When John Luke was 9, Parker stopped writing back. It took a while before John Luke was sure, before he allowed the worry to slither into his bones and take flavor and color away and leave only trembling cold behind. Parker had never been quiet this long. Something had happened. Phone calls were expensive, and even with what Parker sent every month, John Luke didn't have much change. It all went to their older sister, Phoebe, who meant well. She really did. But she hadn't planned on caring for her baby brother in the expense of San Francisco, not when she had her own kids to feed. She'd never approved of Parker going back east anyway. San Francisco was easier, safer. There were more people here like them. John Luke didn't particularly feel like anyone was like him. He had no friends. He had his big brother, and that had always been good enough. But Parker stopped writing back. So for a solid week, John Luke ran errands, washed windows, subbed for the paperboy. Toby would do anything to get out of work.
Extra, read all about it.
And scrounged at last enough money to call Yang and Lester PI in Arkham, Massachusetts. The phone rang, and nobody ever picked up. Phoebe finally listened to him because the money stopped coming, and she called the police in Arkham. That's how they learned Parker was dead. The body had been incinerated. They hadn't bothered to contact next of kin.
Because he was a...
Phoebe's husband said, and then used a slur that made Phoebe smack him. They'd sold all his goods at police auction. It was over. Parker was gone as though he'd never existed, and there was nothing left. John Luke cried a lot. He probably wasn't supposed to. Someone should, though, shouldn't they? Was there someone else? Adults always had other people, didn't they? He'd peeked into Phoebe's address book, but all she'd had was Parker's name, office address, and office phone number, all of which had been lightly crossed out with a single precise pencil line. That made him cry again. He couldn't even verbalize why. He left her address book open, as if forcing her to see Parker's name could possibly conjure grief from her too, and tried to continue his life. When John Luke was 10, he discovered magic. He hadn't meant to. He'd been in trouble at school again, the kind he always got into by trying to be good. They said he was sullen when he was quiet. They said he was rude when he just struggled to make eye contact. They said he was antisocial when trying to talk to his peers felt like being a bug trying to swim in molasses. He knew about molasses. Phoebe and Parker had been living with their parents in Boston in 1919, and he'd never forgotten the nightmarish description of a spider trapped in that horrible flow, unable to lift its limbs to save itself. So he was in trouble. They made him sit in the corner with the dunce cap on, even though he had the highest grades in class. It was dark by the time he headed home. He'd probably be in trouble for that, not that he was ever noticed any other time. He could admit it to himself in the crowded, smelly dark of this night. No one would be upset if he didn't come home. If he didn't come home, Phoebe would maybe cross his name out with a light pencil line, and that would be that. Feeling sick, he slowed. John Luke passed irregular street lamps and neon lights proclaiming chop suey and Shanghai low. Past the alleys where, he'd been told, the Tong had fought for supremacy only a few years before. And then he stopped. He stopped at the alley leading to the 5 flights of stairs that would take him to Phoebe's apartment. Stopped because he did not want to go home. Home was not here. Home was gone. He missed Parker. Strange, sometimes, how these moments hit, unexpected and unplanned, without any warning for how they changed one's life course. Jean-Luc could not know this was one such moment now. He only knew he could go where he belonged, to disapproval, to cold quiet, to disappointment he'd gotten in trouble, to early bed and conveniently no dinner. Or could walk in the traffic-clogged streets and pretend he was like them and stay out all night long because who was going to stop him? Maybe a cop, but more likely no one. And that, right now, felt better than going back. So, he walked. He walked, head down, hands pocketed, unconcerned for thieves because he had nothing to steal. He walked, crying softly, wishing Parker were here, wishing the police had been wrong. He walked and turned streets at random and tried not to bump into anyone. Impossible. And ignored pickpockets and found a neon sign he'd never seen before. Change fortune. That was silly. So silly. He knew all that kind of thing was bullshit. He knew science was real. Math mattered. Magic was lies. There was no such thing as fortune or luck. Change fortune. What good would it do to try, anyway? He had no money. Toby got caught outsourcing, and now nobody could take turns for him anymore. It didn't even mean anything. It wouldn't do anything. He couldn't bring Parker back. Not even the old world stories Phoebe's ancient mother-in-law told portrayed that as possible. Change fortune. On the other hand, what harm could it do? Jean-Luc stepped inside the shop. It was a dark, creaky space with creaky floors and creaky fans and creaky something that almost sounded like alien voices, some kind of insect choir, impossible beings squeaking some kind of song for whatever they thought song-worthy. The shop was narrow, one long room, lit only by the front windows with shelves floor to ceiling on either side, crammed with unlabeled goods wrapped in dust and mystery. And at the far end, behind a glass counter, sat a little old man. A little old man who beckoned him forward. A little old man with pale eyes and lips that did not smile. A little old man who seemed to have fox ears if Jean-Luc didn't look directly, and a fox tail if Jean-Luc looked away.
You look young and healthy. I need help. Can you help me?
Jean-Luc's Mandarin was pretty good, and he understood.
Yes, sir?
The old man tried to stand, winced, a grimace that showed his pointed teeth, and sat again.
It's time to pay my rent, but I'm injured. Could you take my rent money to my landlord? He lives upstairs. It won't be a terrible journey. This way, he won't hound me, and I can recover from my fall in peace. Please, help me.
Well, what was Jean-Luc going to say? No? It was obvious the old man, who was human no matter what imagination claimed, needed help. Jean-Luc understood needing help. He took the envelope. He did not open it. Following instructions, he walked around the outside of the building, found the fire escape, climbed it, and knocked on the window of the second floor. It was opened by someone he could not see, a darker shape in darkness with round, frog-like eyes glinting in the gloom. Jean-Luc swallowed and held the envelope out.
From the man downstairs.
Thank you, Jean-Luc,
said the darker shape in darkness, and took the envelope with a hand, green, mottled, webbed, that fortunately did not make contact. And Jean-Luc trembled on his way down the stairs and swallowed bile as he hesitated outside that shop door. Change, fortune. And finally went inside because rationally this could not be real, what he'd seen up there. And if it was, he had no name for it, but if it was real, then he needed to see where it went. The old man smiled and offered some steaming tea.
What do you want more than all the world?
Jean-Luc did not live in a home or an era in which taking things from strangers was verboten, so he took the warm, fragile teacup and sipped. He didn't know this brew. It was floral, a strange taste, almost dusty, but so good he suddenly had to fight the urge to gulp it down at once.
My brother.
Why had he answered that?
A challenging proposition. I can't give him back to you.
Jean-Luc's heart ached, as if disappointed, but he couldn't be because that meant he'd hoped for the impossible.
I know. No one can, sir.
The old man pointed his knobbly, wrinkled finger.
There is one who can. It will cost you. It will take much effort, trial, error, and triumph. But there is one who can. It will cost you. But there is one who can.
The repeat mattered, made this like a vow, and Jean-Luc stood there holding a teacup that was not his, trembling from head to toe, and suddenly knew this was the hinge his life would turn on. There would be a before and an after this choice, but if he could get his brother back, he did not care about the cost.
Please.
He pretended tears weren't leaking down his cheeks, hoping the darkness of the room would hide them. The old man nodded.
Good luck, Jean-Luc.
He held his hand out, palm up, and blew on it, right into Jean-Luc's face. And Jean-Luc woke up at home on Phoebe's spare children's mattress. Beside his head, a pile of ancient, mold-spotted books in various languages waited to be read. Of course, Change Fortune was gone. It was an abandoned laundromat, flooded out, walls and floors ruined by water too thoroughly for anyone to bother renovating it. Mold climbed the walls. He doubted the apartments above were clear of it. He walked around the side of the building and found that the fire escape was rusted off, broken, completely missing from the third floor down. Right, so it had happened. He knew it had. By kindness to an old man, he'd earned something. A chance, his gut said, which was not a guarantee. It was ludicrous to believe. Insane. Crazy town. Jean-Luc believed. And in hope he would somehow resurrect his brother, he went home and opened the first book. Part 2. Inciting Incident. He read. He learned. He practiced. Memorizing spells, testing pronunciations. He discovered he had a knack. Magic was real. Jean-Luc understood this now. The proof was incontrovertible. Proven when bullies knocked him down and spells helped him after. Months passed. His birthday came and went, and no one noticed. That felt like a sign, and he took it. Phoebe was his sister. This was family here, but not true family. Parker had been family. Jean-Luc knew the difference, though he didn't know how to say it. Magic was real, and Parker could be found. John Luke was 11 when he left Earth behind in search of an impossible wish. The tunnels below Chinatown were an open secret, inaccessible, undocumented, but everyone still knew they were down there. He found the entrance. He cast magic, healing a bruise he'd gotten earlier that day when one of his classmates had knocked him down. And the moment he cast magic, the way opened. It was shimmering, spiking around its edges like flame, like warning. He needed no warning. Life without his brother was worse than anything he might face on the other side. Behind him was nothing but bad memories and a lack of love. Ahead, maybe, was Parker. A full year after he'd helped a strange old foxman, John Luke walked into the Dreamlands. He walked in with no money. He had books and some food. He had no problem taking it given how little he'd been fed, and some clothes. He was not even tempted to look back.